Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tabletop Almanac. My name is Simon. I am your host and game reviewer for this channel. Now, today we are looking at Dragonbane. Dragonbane is the latest incarnation of the classic Swedish game Drakar och Demoner, which I have hopefully pronounced correctly. My Swedish is non-existent. Now, I am particularly excited to look at this. I really like seeing the sort of, not homegrown games, but as someone who grew up on D&D, seeing what people did in other places of the world, what games they gravitated towards, what they made on their own that had nothing to do with D&D, is always just very interesting to see. And I've been very happy with everything I've found out. Dark Eye. I wish there were more Japanese ones I could see, but Ryutama and I'm gonna forget and mispronounce it, but it's the one where you are imbued with god powers and fight gods. Kamigahari, something like that. Anyway, Dragonbane, or Drakar och Demoner, was based on a translation of Chaosium's Magic World, and which means it has a connection to the BRP system, which I love beyond belief. It's not a percentile system, but it is a roll under system, except when you're trying to roll high. But overall, it's a roll under system. Now, a couple of sort of aesthetic things. It comes in this amazingly gorgeous box, and the more box sets that come out, in my opinion, the better. They're fun. They're easy to contain things, and beyond just books, because you can hold dice or standouts or handouts, things like that, without having to create your own container for it. So what I really like about this too is it reminds me of when I first started going to conventions and was playing, old school kind of games. Wizard's Quest, I believe, was one of them, and it has this like 70s, 80s aesthetic to it, which I think is delightful, both in the font and the art. Now, this is called Mirth and Mayhem Role-Playing. The idea is to adventure, play, have fun. You don't have to take it too seriously if you don't want to, which is totally fine considering how chaotic most adventuring games get anyway. So it sort of leans into the adventure fantasy genre. So there are a couple of things here. This is going to be a pseudo unboxing, and I say pseudo because my 2 2/3 year old thought it looked fantastic, so we have opened it up to look at it, but I haven't dug too deeply into it yet. I do have the Foundry module system, whatever the proper term is, so I've tinkered around a little bit, but I'm here to show you also what's in the box. Outside the box there's a screen, there we are, a delightful screen. It unfolds in this fashion and has a number of useful tables on the inside, action lists, and so on. So, always a good thing to have, even if you don't use them in the classic mold. So it's not, how do I hide my dice from my players, but rather, I'd like to reference everything in one handy spot. You got it right there. So inside the box, there's a Welcome to Dragonbane sort of leaflet, and that's kind of fun. It really is sort of set up to be your first RPG. So it talks about what you need to do at the group. Get a game master, who are going to be the rest of the players around the table. How do you create a character versus using pre-generated ones? So, it's not a bad thing to have there, especially if it is intended as a starter. It's not a starter kit. It is a complete game, but it's, nice to have. So outside the box, There's a set of Dragonbane dice. It's your standard polyhedrals, 6 of them. The D20 has engraved symbols on the 1 and 20 sides for dragon and demon rolls. Those are basically critical hits and misses. But then the box itself comes with this nice little set, which is basically the same thing, only it has 2 20-siders and 4 6-siders. A couple other things that it comes with are a whole bunch of cards. Free League does like their cards, and I like Free League liking cards. There are treasure cards, which, when I guess you draw them at certain points during play, and they have things like Poison Dagger on the inside, or, well, that's armor. Let's get something just generic here. Silver coins. Nice tactile elements to have to sort of keep you in the mood of things and know what's going on. Initiative is also done by card, and it's done by card, so they have initiative cards 1 to 10. There, 1 to 10 for you to look at and keep in front of you. Improvised weapons get a card too. And it's kind of neat. You have Puddle. Roll to trip the enemy, page 48 in the rulebook. If you succeed, they have to spend an action and make an acrobatics roll to get back up. Great little references. Like, there's nothing bad I can say about these. They're just really, really useful. And then there are also adventure cards. And adventure cards give detail on a site in the immediate area that the core kit of Dragonbane takes place in. So I'm surmising. And it'll be something like adventure card, and then Tower of Size on the inside. There's a disgusting bog about a day's march east of here. It's crawling with blood-sucking leeches and insects, and is a hideout for bandits. But there are vast riches out there in the sludge buried in the ruins of an ancient watchtower. People around here call it the Tower of Size. Fun, evocative, and I suppose if you're doing a sort of hex crawl, that's a great thing for the GM to sort of pull out and read aloud from to give you a little bit of info. So let's look at the remainder of the content in here. Oh, those are initiatives. Okay, so we have a little battle mat, battle grid, squares inside a dungeon. Focus there. Outside in the woods, which I imagine are intended to work with these little guys, cardboard standouts for all these sort of signature characters. The illustrations in the rulebook. So this is an elf who's got thinning hair. He looks kind of old. I like that. You don't often see them portrayed that way. But it, even gets big enough that you got like a freaking manticore. That's fun. So there are those. Then there are character sheets. There are a set of pre-made characters. There we go. Which have bio on one side plus ability like power descriptions, and then the back or other side has the actual character sheet with all their info. There are blank character sheets in this box, which is cool. It's helpful. I like it when people do that. Oddly enough, they are double-sided and exactly the same on each side. As far as I can tell, they're identical. I mean, that's cool. When one character dies, just flip it over and you can do whatever's on the other side, right? Just make a whole new character on there. But I do find it curious. Anyway, nothing wrong with that. We've got a lovely map here of the Misty Vale with the Kickstarter backers. Whoa, hold on. There we are. with the Kickstarter backers on the back. So if you're wondering where your credit is in this book, or in this box, it's on the back there. I'm going to get rid of that blur because it's mucking up me showing you this stuff. And the Misty Veil is the de facto starting setting of the game, the default one. So the Tower of Size must be somewhere here. Where is it? I'd love to find the Tower of Size. You know what? It's not explicitly labeled. There's probably a reason for that, which is fine. Okay. And then you've also, courtesy of Sean Tonkin, the designer of Ironsworn and Ironsworn Starforged, the Strider mode for the One Ring and other solo RPG efforts, is a solo dungeon delve called Alone in Deep Fall Breach. I haven't played through it yet. It is... it's interesting. It's not a choose your own adventure, and does kind of look like the dungeon will be different each time. So cool. I look forward to giving this a shot and seeing how it goes. So let's put a pile of this stuff back in here, and I will tell you about the rest of the box. So, which, these are lovely and wonderful, and bells and whistles. And here, let's look at the actual game itself and what comes in that. Alright, so we've got two books. They both have that kind of matte feel to it that I do like. Twilight 2000 had the same sort of, same sort of sound and touch sensation. Enjoy my ASMR review. ASMR? AMSR? I don't remember. One is rules, one is adventures. The adventures book is what it sounds like. It is at least, they say, no fewer than 11 complete adventures forming the epic campaign, The Secret of the Dragon Emperor. You can play them in any order. You don't have to play all of them. Each can be standalone. The Isle of Mist, which is the finale, however, is the finale. So, keep that in mind. It looks really well laid out. It gives us a background of the Misty Veil and, a legend. So the players with the map in front of them don't know where the Tower of Size is, but I do. It's right here. What? I'm not showing it to you. You'll have to find it yourself. Okay. So then it gives you, the background on it, course of events, opening scene, battle maps, effectively. So you've got a lot to work with here. When I have a chance to get through it, I'll be able to give a better idea of how it works. But I do sort of get the feel, based on the description and other things I've read, that this is very much a sort of classic site-based campaign. Forgive me if I'm incorrect in it, but it does seem like, since you can approach these in any order, that one, it's either scaled to permit that, but then also, even if not, the adventures take place when you get to a certain area, which is fun. I like that a lot. It really has a classic feel of like busting out your NES and Dragon Warrior, even early Final Fantasy. I'm thinking like 1, maybe 2, before they got plots, like deep plots, and were at times interactive movies. But I don't really mean to throw shade. I still love Final Fantasy. But and then the rules. Okay. Nice slimish book. It's 112 pages, minus index, which is on the inside back cover. Love it. Use them. Nothing on the inside front cover. Maybe that would be if you're going to do it on the back, why not do it on the front, right? But nevertheless, let's look at this a little bit. Won't get too deep into all the rules. From what I have gone over so far, they are not overly complicated. The design goal is to be fast and furious, and much like another game. But point being is that not get bogged down in things happening, and I don't feel you're going to. It's not so like gritty that it's going to force you to whiff constantly, and have to memorize all sorts of arcane spot rules. When you're making a character, it is randomly generated or chosen, but you can have fun randomly generating. There's it's a kind of a mainstay of adventure fantasy. There are 6 kin you can play. These are what we might also know as species, or the highly out of date and inappropriate term race. They are human, halfling, dwarf, elf, and then wolfkin, who are bipedal wolf people, and mallards. As you could probably guess from the cover, they are duck people. I was not a huge fan of that in RuneQuest, but you know what? People like ducks. I like Howard the Duck. DuckTales was fun, and that does lean into the mirth part of things, the kind of ridiculousness of having ducks going adventuring, which your table may vary. So then you've also got professions, and there are 10 of them: artisan, bard, fighter, hunter, knight, mage, mariner, merchant, scholar, and thief. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory. Thief, mage, fighter, bard. Hunter is like a ranger kind, including a companion. Artisan is a craftsperson. And what else? Mage is neat because there are 3 schools of magic: animism, elementalism, or mentalism. So it sort of seems like you're getting your priest, wizard, psionic, psychic character in one profession, which is great. Fantasy Age does that as well. I am perfectly happy having a spellcaster class, and then you pick the flavor for it. It does suggest some interesting things about the world of Dragonbane in terms of the religious aspects of it, but that, I guess, is to be seen in future books, of which I hope there are. Mariner, sea-based, kind of swashbucklery. Merchant is a chatty person, definitely the face of a party. Scholar is literally a scholar. They're a book nerd. And that's that. Age plays a role in that it can either boost your attributes, so those are strength, agility, constitution, intelligence, willpower, and charisma. So close to, but not 100% the classic 6. But it can also provide penalties when you're too old. Your age also determines how many trained skills you get. And skills, this is a skill-based game, are based off of your attributes, and depending on the attribute, you get a base chance number to succeed on by rolling equal to or under on a 1d20. But if it's trained, you get double that score. So if your attribute is anywhere between 9 and 12, your base chance is 5. But if it's trained skill, obviously, then 10. There's some other fun little things you can roll for. Weaknesses, mementos. Mementos do have a purpose. They are handy. Role-playing your weaknesses are handy as well, so there's purpose beyond just flavor for all of these things. I do like that there's encumbrance, and I do like that it doesn't seem exceedingly difficult to figure out. Okay, how to play. So, since everything's skill-based, you roll a d20 and try to get equal to or under your skill level to succeed. That's a classic mainstay of a roll-under system. On a 1, you are particularly successful. That's called rolling a dragon. So it basically just adds, some positive effect to it. You impress people. You are an overachiever in that instant, and so on. Failure is is rolling a demon, which is a 20 on a d20, and that means that your roll fails regardless of anything else. and you can wind up damaging yourself, making a lot of noise. You get the idea. You know what can happen. I do like in the sidebar they say you have one chance. Your character has not had one chance, but you have one chance by the point in time in which you roll the die. Then that is sort of as far as you can go with it. You're rolling the dice because you had a chance, but now you might not. Boons and Banes are good. They're your advantage, disadvantage, rolling two 20-siders. Opposed rolls, yeah, again, same sort of idea. If your roll fails, your action fails, regardless of what the opponent has done. If your roll succeeds while they fail, your action succeeds. And if you succeed with both of them, your action succeeds if the result of your roll is lower than or equal to your opponent's result. And then you can push a roll. Pushing roll is a free league thing. You get to reroll a die and suffer a condition. This can be exhausted based on strength, sickly based on constitution, disheartened based on charisma, and it's to suggest your minions' feelings during that point in play. There's a good solid set of course skills, each of course having its requisite attribute next to it. Heroic abilities are like your feats, so you could have Guardian, where you can take a hit for friends, dual wield, Eagle Eye, Intuition, Iron Grip, Lone Wolf, things like that. Alright, combat. So like I said, you use cards to draw initiative. The GM determines if there's surprise, and then on your turn you can move and perform an action. The inside of the Game Master screen gives you a rundown of what you can do, but then you get a free action as well. And free ones are like drawing a weapon, changing your position, dropping an item, shouting, etc. Most of what you would probably want to have is here, so thieves can detect unpleasant things. Dwarves can detect traps and try to undo them and then fail. But you've got that kind of idea. Let's see. Melee combat damage is damage. Roll the dice, subtract it from your hit points. I do like that there's a back and forth in combat between attacking and parrying. You have to be armed. You can't parry and dodge the same attack, obviously. It breaks the initiative order, so if you're attempting one, then you get to the front. One of the ways in which artisans can really earn their keep is in combat, or rather after combat, because when you do parry and the attack hits a weapon or a shield, it can damage the weapon, and it has to be repaired by a crafting roll. So, they're good to have around. You can also dodge, but it does take your action. Parrying you can do reflexively. So, it's not exceptionally complicated, but it does have a fair bit of depth in there. And I like that. It does still feel kind of BRP via Pendragon in a way, not fully, but using a 20-sided die and such. I do even think that you could hack bits of Pendragon into this if you wanted to have the personality trait set up, the Code of Chivalry or whatever. Stick it here, why not? All right. You can get conditions. Conditions are something you might have seen in a bunch of different games. But if you push your roll, which lets you roll again, you have to take a condition attached to one of your attributes. And so these are things like exhausted, sickly, dazed, angry, scared, disheartened, based on the player characters of the main story. Magic. Magic is based on intelligence. You get to start with one school, and you can learn other schools of magic during the game. So you've got animism, which is the belief in spirits and gods, everything with a soul. Elementalism, which is everything in the universe consists of wind, water, earth, and fire. And mentalism, which is my brain juice has power. One thing to kind of note, even for a game like this, is if your players have it, make them either memorize their spell list, write it down, or bring it to you. That way you don't have to remember, or start flipping when they want to do something. The casting methods strike very familiar, very old school. There is a magical mishap table, which I don't know if I should be so open about in terms of getting rid of players, but nevertheless. Elementalism is fun in a kind of classic wizard style. So you've got pillars of fire or stone, gusts of wind, tidal waves, summoning elementals. Not massively expensive, but still pretty helpful. And again, kids can kind of figure that stuff out on their own. Mentalism is I'm not going to get too deep into all the rules. You can get to them when you start playing, but they are pretty straightforward, back and forth, nice and fast. And I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into them. The bestiary is small but satisfying. I mean, you can always reskin things, make a little tweak here and there. Something that I think is neat is how hackable it feels, and not in everything can fit in there, but if I wanted to bring down the personality traits that code of chivalry from Pendragon, I can do it, and I don't think there'd be any real difficulty. So yeah, Dragonbane looks cool, looks fun, awesome box, awesome little bits of toys. So check it out. It's from Free League Publishing, and I'd like to thank them for supporting this channel and me and my endeavors related to RPG reviews. A couple of, I guess, final thoughts on Dragonbane is that it feels to me kind of like maybe a Swedish version of Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson's Fighting Fantasy series, where, even if the one protagonist hero was particularly competent, you still had a lot to get through. And so it always felt a little like you were kind of running out of time. And in many cases you were. But the world of it, any great empires is long gone. What do you think? Small communities between places, wizards and towers, and so on. And it really has that feel to it. The art is distinct and unique. The art doesn't remind me of Ian Miller, but the setting's style reminds me of Ian Miller from, you might remember, from Magic and from Fighting Fantasy. So it definitely has that lived-in kind of old school fantasy feel to it. It's not a massive power fantasy kind of game. I don't think characters will die as quickly as in, say, Dungeon Crawl classics, but they're not invincible. So look up the timing on healing, and we'll see how that is. So once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I am Simon. This is the Tabletop Almanac, and we have been reviewing Dragonbane from Free League Publishing. Stay safe out there, and have a good one.